Krown Countdown U. My name is Ryan Sullivan. That, as always, is Mr. Andrew Watt. And a special welcome to our new viewers out in the Maritimes, in cities like Charlottetown, Halifax, South Dildo, Sackville, and Antigonish.
Oh, you really slid the names of those towns right in there. September 19th, 2004, that was the last time the Laval Rouge et Or lost a home game. Just to who was that lost to? Well, the Montreal Carabins. Could the Carabins break the Red Machine's decade-long dominance this past weekend? Well, let's head to Peps and find out. So over to Laval Province we go. Putty from Seinfeld was apparently at Peps for this one. Early in the first, Carabins with a beauty fake. The cameraman gets completely deked out. Michael Davidson, who you didn't see in the picture, takes it in for the major. MTL takes an early lead. But the Red Machine would respond. Freshman pivot Hugo Richard hits Anthony Auclair. That's a 19-yard gain. Richard then hits Felix Lachachour for the touche. Laval now in front by Uno. And Putty's Viking brother, well, he's loving it. Late in the second Q, Carabin pivot Gabriel Cousineau rolls out, finds a receiver, but he's in the wrong colored uni. Gabriel Oulet with the pick. So Richard goes back to work, back to Auclair. That's a 16-yard pickup. Richard would then plunge it in for the major. The Red Machine takes a 12-point lead into the poutine break. Third Q, and Richard puts the Carabins to bed early without their dessert. He hit Julian Bailey, who makes the catch with two defenders draped all over him. Laval kicks off the 2014 season, taking Montreal to the woodshed. Richard with an unreal CIS regular season debut. The freshman slinger connected on 23 of 31 passes for 371 yards and 3 touches.
Concordia hosting Bishops. The Stingers rocking some new unis for 2014. They get the A grade too. Absolutely beautiful. First play of the game, it's the worst handoff in the history of the sport. An easy scoop up for the Killer Bees, and it leads to this Keegan Traylor field goal. Yeah, kickers can selly. Oh boy. Gators looking to storm in the second. Shane McDonald hits Jerome Mercier for a solid gain. It's then Ron Lee King Feline with an easy major to top it off. Bishops leads 13-9 at the half. Concordia did the new unis proud though in the third. Jeremy Peltier with the pick, and he takes it back 43 yards deep into the heart of the fading Montreal sun. Gunnar Tatum would cash in the drive from 2 yards out. The nail in the coffin though belongs to Jamal Henry. A gorgeous fake and toss on the run from Frankie Desereau, and then this thing is done. Concordia starts the year 1-0, 25-15 is your final. Gunnar Tatum was a busy man on the day, 35 rushes for 192 yards, plus the major. Concordia has a good shot of starting the season 2-0 when they visit McGill this weekend.
Sherbrooke puts a notch in the win column, starting off the year with a decisive win over McGill. Sebastian Blanchard caught 11 passes, racking up 193 yards in the win.
It's been 16 years since the X-Men won a game at Husky Stadium. However, with the latest and greatest in field turf technology freshly laid under their feet, by the way, did you know SMU got new turf? Perhaps the X-Men could finally turn the tide in the Atlantic to start 2014. X-Men St. Mary's. Bagels here in the first, and Chase Cody's can't get a nice punt away thanks to Aaron Brownlee, ladies and gentlemen. He skies up to lay the block down. Demetrius Ferguson picks it up, takes it down to the 8, and it leads to this Tavon Cook touchdown connection. With Donald Tabor, it's 7-X. The Huskies getting shut down on offense as well. Ben Rassong sacked down here. A few possessions later, he looks to the air, only to find the wrong jersey. Justin Holland with the pick. X-Men slay the dragon. 31-7, your final. Ashton Dixon, the man in this one for FX, rushing for 161 yards and a major. The white and blue will look to make it 2 at home this weekend, hosting Mount A.
Off to Sackville we go. The reigning AUS champion Mount Allison playing host to Acadia. Axemen rookie QB John Shaw making his CIS debut, facing off against Brandon Lay. First Q, Mounties up by a deuce. Emmanuel Musangu rushes this one in, putting the home side up by 9. Shift to the fourth, and the Mounties put this game on ice. Lay to Rodrigue Joseph. Whoops! The defender slips, and it's nothing but real estate for Joseph. Mount A opened the 2014 campaign with a win over Acadia. Lay with a nice start to the season, connected on 76% of his passes in the win. The Queens Gales debuted last week as the #9 team in the nation. The Ottawa GGs, well, they got very little respect from the national voters and were left out of the season's first top 10. With that in mind, the GGs took to the road looking to earn some national respect.
A win in this one could propel the GGs into the CIS top 10. So let's get right into it. Down 14 in the second Q, Billy McPhee to Curtis Carmichael. CC makes the haul with a defender draped all over him. Then it's McPhee to Jonah Pataki. Gales take the lead. Third Q now. They added to that lead with Pataki's second major of the day. Queens follows that up with 2 field goals to bring the lead to 14. But cue the Ottawa comeback. Just over 8 minutes to go. Derek Wendell, Mr. Wendell, hey, to Ian Stewart. It's a 1-score game. Under 3 minutes to go now. Wendell to Mac Tommy. You lied to me. That's a 25-yard major tie game. 16 seconds remaining now. Tommy puts his head down looking for the end zone. Return of the Mac. Mac Tommy would have made Mark Morrison proud. The GGs come from behind to stun the Gales. At Richardson, Derek Wendell with a monster game, 35 of 52, 400 yards, 3 majors, forget about the 2 picks.
Guelph Griffins, Toronto Varsity Blues. Look at these slick 50th anniversary duds. Guelph, you've already won in my book. Those are gorgeous. However, my book doesn't count. There was a game going on. After surrendering an early safety, Jazz Lindsay finds some room, and he goes for a trot. A nice little scamper, a first and then some, and it leads to this connection with Alex Charette. It's 7-2 for the Gold Buckets. Toronto taking over deep in their own territory, but Nasser is picked by Andrew Graham, and that pick would lead to this. James Roberts is his first ever CIS pass, and it's a touchdown to who else? Charette again. It's now 14-5 for the Griffins. Toronto down, but not out as Nasser hooks up deep with Levi Noel. That's a big connection, and it would lead to points on the board courtesy of Kevin Bradfield. Nice effort on the grab. It's 14-12, Guelph at the break. Now, Griffins trailing 18-7 after a few field goals in the third when Ryan Newesty pulls down this punt return and he breaks out Google Maps. He slices his way through traffic, finds a huge hole. Newesty, the newest thing in men's fashion, takes it back 62 yards to the house. Much like Ryan, the Griffins do not look back. 50-18 your final from Alumni Stadium. Jazz Lindsay was taken out of this one due to some shoulder discomfort, but he is listed as probable for Week 3's matchup with Ottawa.
Laurier on the road in Windsor. Jayhawks running back Dylan Campbell coming off a monster weekend last week, looking for another big game. Facing off against Austin Kennedy and the Lancers. Early on, Jayhawks get Kennedy on the run. He looks for the jump pass, which is always a bad decision. That lands him right into the arms of 2 Jayhawks. Next series for the $5 bills. Countdown you, all name team member, Ronnie Pfeffer. Boom! That's a 49-yarder. Jayhawks scratched the scoreboard first. Second cue, and it was time to fire up the DC. Campbell jukes 2 Lancers out of their cleats, blasts his way into the end zone. Hey, you! Get out of the way! That's a 30-yard major, and I swear he made it in. It's 10-0 for Laurier. Late in the queue now, Lancers down 6. Kennedy to Evan Peshonik. Touchdown, Windsor! The Lancers take a 1-point lead into the half. Shift to late in third queue. James Fracas looks end zone for Greg Nuhoff. The Hoff gets trampled by a cheetah, clearly pass interference. That sets up this 2-yard pass from Fracas to Anthony Pizzuti. Jayhawks up 10 with just under 15 to play. And they add to it. After recovering the kickoff, Fracas scrambles out of the pocket, finds the Hoff, who's all alone, put another 7 on the board. Jayhawks' lead grows to 17. But the Lancers joust their way back deep in the Laurier zone. Nick Vincent busts his way into the bluegrass. Then back in the Jayhawks zone, Kennedy calls his own number, looking like a young Randall Cunningham, dives his way into the end zone. Lancers cut the lead to 3. They would tie things up with a field goal, but give up a rouge to trail by 1. 30 seconds to go now. Kennedy out of the shotgun, airs one out for Peshonik. Can you believe this? Lancers missed the 2-point convert, but they're now up by 5. Fracas gets one last crack for the win. Looks end zone for Pizzuti. No, sir. Windsor completes the comeback, getting its first W of the season. The Lancers scored 23 points in the final 11 minutes. Kennedy led the way for Windsor, tossing for 326 yards and 2 majors. DC Dylan Campbell continues to wreck shop on the ground. in 2 games this year, he has rushed for an incredible 470 yards.
McMaster-Waterloo, not much of a contest here. 66-0 the final. The Warriors taking an absolute spanking and falling to 0-2 on the season.
Massive upset at York Stadium. No, actually, not at all. Western lays the boots to the Lions with a 61-0 shellacking.
All right, let's check out those OUA standings. Not quite everybody has played 2 games yet. Nonetheless, McMaster and Ottawa sitting atop the table at a perfect 2-0. When you mention the province of Saskatchewan to most Canadians, there's always one very, very common response. That's the real home of Canadian football. You're damn right it is. This past week, the Countdown crew had the honor of flying out to the city of Bridges for a season opener for the ages. To the Paris of the Prairies we go. An estimated 10,000 plus on hand for the home opener at Griffins. Coach Doby not too stoked about going into week 1 without Nick Dembski. It wouldn't hurt him in the first half though. Already up 10-7. Keenan LaFrance with a gorgeous diving grab. That's a touchdown. Spread out like a fine Nino's Pizza, a popular Saskatoon eatery for those playing the home game. The Bisons would keep laying it on as Drew Burko is picked by Tyler Fong. This would lead to an Alex Vitt score from 7 yards out. Manitoba jumps ahead by 10. Huskies not done before the half though.
2nd and goal to go from the 10. Burko looks to the end zone, complete to Kit Hillis, and he is into the end zone for the touchdown.
Thank you very much, man who signs my checks. By the way, quick shout out, Kit and Mitch Hillis' mother spoke to us before the game. She loves the new jackets. It's Manitoba by 3 at the half. 3rd quarter and things start to slide for the Bisons. Off the punt return, Keenan LaFrance should have wiped the gloves a little better. He loses the handle and the Huskies recover the leather deep in Bison territory. The fumble recovery would lead to this little scamper from Jarvis James. Nicely done. Huskies lead 31-24 on that very elusive trot. Jordan Yant then tosses up one of his 3 picks on the night. Mark Ingram, Johnny on the spot. That's his 2nd INT. Ingram takes it back 25 yards, and this would lead to the final nail in the coffin. Burko sets back and hits Bryden Osmond from 16 yards out. Hey parents, come pick up your kids. 44-24 is your final from Saskatoon. Drew Burko shook off the shades of 2013 with 4 touchdowns on the night, while Jordan Yance missed his main target big time. Nick Dembski, he was taken out of the lineup for week 1 with a tweaked hamstring. The Huskies will try and go 2-0 to start the year this weekend in Alberta.
T-Birds and Rams locked horns in Regina. Early first cue, UBC special teams go to work. Riley Jones gets to the punt, recovers it, and he gone. That's a 33-yard major. T-Birds put 7 on the board. Late in the queue, Rams pivot Cayman Shutter somehow scrambles his way out of this, tosses up a wobbler that Riley Wilson pulls down. That led to a field goal for Regina. Second cue now, Shutter over the middle to Jarrett Janata. Double J puts the Rams deep into the red zone, where Landon Bush would cap off the drive, scratching and clawing his way into the end zone, though I don't think he actually got in. Game tied now at 10. Second half, game tied at 13. T-Birds pivot Carson Williams looks end zone. There's David Mann, beautifully placed ball. UBC back out in front, but not for long. Shutter bombs one out for a wide open Addison Richards. That's the guy you never want to leave open. Richards with the major, and he gives it a little Johnny football at the end. Points for the catch, but none for the played out celebration. Fourth cue and the Shutter-Richards duo hook up once again. This time it's a 41-yarder. Richards with a better celebration this time around, but once again, lacking in originality. That put the Rams up by 7, and they didn't look back. Regina adds 2 more field goals, and they beat the T-Birds by 10. Cayman Shutter, what can you say? What a fantastic game. 30 for 51, 430 yards, 2 touchdowns. Addison Richards with a game-high 133 yards on 9 catches and the 2 majors. Carson Williams played the entire game under center for the T-Birds, connecting on 17 of 30 passes for 220 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 INT. A rather lackluster game from Brandon Deschamps, who was held to just 49 yards on 13 carries in the loss.
Calgary hosting Alberta after that 2nd place finish last year in the Vanier. The Dinos are hungry for more. Already up 2 scores, Andrew Buckley connects with Brett Blasco. That's a 65-yard transaction. Then Quinton Chow with one of his 2 touchdowns. No chance for the GBs. 71-3 your final. Brett Blasco had quite the day, pulling in 3 touchdowns and 198 receiving yards. Calgary will get a better test in Week 2 when they visit UBC. On behalf of all of us, I just want to send out a special thank you from the Krown Countdown U folk to the people of Saskatoon for showing us one hell of a time this past weekend.
Now that we're on in Atlantic Canada, Ryan, I'm really looking forward to one day maybe doing one of those live games or live shows from, say, Sackville.
Or South.
Whoa. Let's not go there again.
Okay, well, in any case, if you're watching on any of those stations across Canada, here's where you can find CIS Football on your TV this weekend.
Welcome back to Krown Countdown U. Throughout the year, we will celebrate the 50th Vanier Cup by looking back at great Vanier Cups. We're going to start in 2006, the coldest Vanier Cup ever at -29 wind chill. It was in Saskatoon and it featured the Saskatchewan Huskies and the Laval Rouge et Or.
Vanier 2006, the Saskatchewan Huskies have made it to their 3rd straight Vanier Cup. This game actually the first Vanier played in Saskatoon. Brian Torres and the Huskies faithful hoping for some hometown luck. They wouldn't start with it. Cameron Takis gets the first points of the day for the Rouge et Or. Still no luck, but a ton of hard work by the Huskies punt return team gets Laval in terrible field position. That gets Sask their first points of the day. Laval concedes the safety. It's a 3-2 game. Huskies looking to change their luck. Nope. Quarterback Brett Thompson puts the ball on the ground. Saskatchewan would recover in order to punt. Laval with a huge return to set up. A 1-yard plunge by Guillaume Allard-Camiens. Rouge et Or up 10-2. Now in the 4th quarter, Huskies' luck finally changing. Tyler O'Gorman with the 3-yard plunge as he hits the corner to score for the Huskies. Thompson looks for 2 points to tie the game, and he doesn't get it right through the receiver's hands. Laval up by 2, trying the game-ending field goal, and it's pushed wide left. Saskatchewan with one last chance. Their luck finally changed. No, their luck just doesn't turn this game as Thompson is picked off, and that's all she wrote. Glenn Constantine and the Laval Rouge et Or win in 2006, while the Saskatchewan Huskies make it to 3 straight Vaniers to lose 3 straight.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Krown Countdown U. It's time again for the Roundtable portion. On the far side of the table, we welcome in producer Jim Mullen, former member of the Queens Gales and UBC Thunderbird. We have Gord Randall, and live from California, we have the one and only, coming off his fresh contract with Schick Razors and the 55-yard line. That's Andrew Bucholtz. Andrew, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. We're going to start things out over towards the AUS. Now, Acadia head coach Jeff Cummins said the AUS is the most balanced conference at the moment. True or false, Jim Mullen?
Well, yeah, I think it's true. I think when you take a look at the 3 leaders in the other conferences, it's easy to make that distinction. You know, when I first read about what Jeff Cummins had to say, I thought initially it was a loser's lament because the AUS just hasn't been competitive nationally. But from a pure fan's perspective, I think he's spot on in that you've got 3 teams aside of St. Mary's right now that could be competitive for #1 in that AUS conference.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that perspective. I think that it depends on the parameters that you put on it because I think every other conference has a great battle for second best. But unfortunately, you've got those 3 teams in Western, Laval, and Calgary that just seem to be head and shoulders above everybody else at this point. So yeah, head on out to the AUS, check out a game there because any week there's going to be, especially with only 4 teams in the conference, there's going to be competitive games every week, except for the dreaded crossover week, of course.
Andrew, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree as well. I think what's interesting is that AUS doesn't have real bottom feeders in the way a lot of the other conferences do. As you've mentioned, every team there is competitive, and so you get some pretty good games week to week. I don't think that necessarily means there aren't problems with AUS, though, because as you guys have mentioned, they haven't been competitive in the playoffs in the crossover lately. So while there may be parity there, it's not necessarily the best sort of parity. Those programs all still could use some improvement as well.
You look at Calgary, 71-3 over Alberta, and out the OUA as well. Max 66-0 over Waterloo. Western 61-0 over the York Lions. Blowouts, are they a necessary evil? And Andrew, we'll go back out to you.
I think they're a function of how CIS is set up at the moment. You have programs like Western, like McMaster, like Calgary that have really invested in building solid programs, building great coaching staffs, putting together good facilities. And then you have teams like York and Waterloo that just they don't have that money. They don't have those kind of coaching staffs. They can't bring in those kind of recruits. So it's very unbalanced at the moment. And I don't think you can easily fix that without, say, either forming the second division. I don't think that's a road CIS wants to go down right now.
You know, Andrew just touched on the talking point that I wanted to go to, and I know I actually heard a very passionate argument against this, but in basketball, the Canada West has now gone to a two-tier system with a bit of a developmental tier, and it seems to me that it's becoming more and more apparent in the OUA that there is a clear-cut Tier 1 and Tier 2 of teams, and you have a couple teams like University of Toronto last year that can maybe go through a year where they can compete with the top level of squads, but year in and year out, I mean, I know for a fact in that Western York game last week, and the final score was 61-0 Western. Western spent the entire second half pulling up and kicking field goals from the 10-yard line with their backups in. I mean, it's not even close. It's a chore to keep the scores even that close.
Yeah, I think with the Calgary Dinos and the Alberta Golden Bears, I think that Blake Nill, though, was sending a message. And that's part of Blake Nill's past as well in terms of sending messages. You might remember that he put 105 up against the Mount Allison Mounties when he was the head coach of St. Mary's. But you know what? Recruiting is very important to him in the province of Alberta. So if he wants to humiliate the University of Alberta in a game, well, then all the power to him, because that's the way he's going to continue to win with homegrown talent, not just from southern Alberta, but central Alberta and Edmonton as well. But getting back to the two-tier thing, I really think that CIS has to take a look, and we've said it on this show before, of getting the Ontario teams and the Canada West teams playing each other throughout the season, because I think that's where the future of television lies, with competitive games. And when we saw blowouts in the OUA last year, that contributed to the OUA losing their TV agreement last year.
Let's look at the last week's upsets and perhaps the games to watch this week. What's tickling your fancy, Gord?
Well, the top of my list, and obviously I'm a little bit biased, but the game in Kingston on Saturday, Ottawa comes in there, the GGs beat the Queen's Gales. I think it was 39-30 was the final score. And that's two fairly lackluster efforts for what was supposed to be a pretty powerful Queen's squad this year. Coming out of the gate, they're now dropped to 1-1 after squeaking out one in Windsor. Now, granted, that game was only 5 days earlier, and Windsor's about an 11-hour drive down the road from Kingston, so it's a tough flip to go 5 days later and play another ball game. So I would caution reading too much into this result, but that was certainly one that leapt off the page to me.
I think in terms of upsets from where I stand, that UBC Regina game was a bit of an upset. UBC had a tremendous recruiting year in the offseason, but I think what it also proved is that there is a value to exhibition games. The University of Regina played Alberta the previous week. UBC couldn't find a dance partner when it came to an exhibition game, and I think as a result, Regina really took it to them. They were up to game speed. I think when you're looking at a game, Mount AX jumps off the page to me. Brandon Lay is in mid-season form already, 200 yards passing, a TD, 22 of 29. Yeah, they're going to miss a guy like Jordan Botel, but I think part of the answer for them is going through the air.
Andrew, your favorite game last week, your favorite game this week?
I think my favorite one last week was actually that Mount Allison and Acadia game. And going back to that point about the AUS producing some quality football, that was a good game. Those teams are close, and it'll be really interesting to see what Mount Allison does this week. I thought Queens Ottawa was good. It's impressive to see the GGs do that. And UBC Regina was good. The one I'm really looking forward to this week is Queens Western. Queens Western is always such a great rivalry, and I'm interested to see if the Gales can rebound off that loss and put on a good effort against the Mustangs.
And finally, I'm looking forward to that Ottawa-Guelph game this week. I'm going to go the other side of that game in Kingston last weekend. I think this will be a really interesting test for the GGs. They're back at home. They're coming off this big win against a Guelph team that many have considered, I mean, they're a lock in the top 10 this year. They lost a close one to Mac and then opened one up late against Toronto. I don't know if Guelph is for real, and I don't know if Ottawa is for real, so I'm going to be watching that matchup very closely.
Now, Guelph needs more consistent quarterbacking. An honorable mention, UBC Calgary. I want to see how UBC bounces off that loss in Regina. And, you know, you were talking off camera about how Regina matches well against UBC. I think UBC matches well against Calgary, and we might have a much closer game than what people think.
All right, time for some quick hits. 30 seconds or less, gentlemen. Andrew, we're going to start with you. Something that we didn't touch on, a story you'd like to bring to the forefront.
Well, one thing I think that's very interesting is the Calgary Dinos. You mentioned a bit about the blowouts. I think the Calgary Dinos are going to be highly motivated this year to really go through every week and dominate, because they've got this reputation over the last few years of people ragging on them for losing in the semis or losing in the Vanier, and a team that's good but not great can't get to that next level. I think Calgary's got a chip on their shoulder.
For me, my quick hit is learn to count, people. Ottawa 2 weeks ago said they had a attendance of 2,800 for their game, when in reality it was 4,100. We show up at the University of Saskatchewan. They said there was 8,100 in there. 2 years ago, I was there for the record-setting game where they said there were 9,300 people in the building. I've got it from a pretty good source that they just started to let people into the place. There was more than 10,000 there. So when there's a good audience showing up at your barn, learn how to count.
My number one quick hit, I want to give a shout out to Pat Tracy now with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We've seen through the first 2 weeks this year that Queen's squad he used to coach misses him dearly. They've given up over 30 points in both games. And finally, I'm not sure if you can hear that, but that is the death knell of St. Mary's as an Atlantic Conference powerhouse. They lost to St. FX, at home for the first time in over a decade this weekend. I think that their reign of terror in that conference, if it wasn't already, is officially over now. And
by the way, no more shout-outs to Queens and UBC for being in the top 10. You saw where that went.
You were pretty quiet about those Queens uniform shout-outs last week.
Yeah, those are awful. I don't know if you can win in those.
There you go. All right, Andrew Bucholtz, thank you so much for joining us live from California. For Jim Mullen, Gord Randall, Andrew Wadden, and myself, Ryan Sullivan, thanks so much again for joining us here on Krown Countdown U. We'll catch you next week, and here is your CIS Top 10.
Number 10. Number 9. Number 8. Number 7. Number 6. Number 5. Number 4. Number 3. Number 2. And number 1. Thanks for watching Krown Countdown U. Now, let's get out to the game.